get started.
All right, we're going to get started. We have about 15 people that are on this webinar, so I want to welcome all of you. And just a few more housekeeping things for those of you that weren't on when I first said it. Throughout the webinar, you will be able to ask questions through the chat box option. So if you can find that chat box at any point, you can ask questions and we should be able to answer them. And just one more thing is that this webinar is being recorded and we will post it on the website shown here on the first slide. And so you will be able to access the slides after this webinar. All right, so we're gonna get started. There's gonna be two of us presenting. I am Jolie, and I'm the person that you RSVP'd to, but also Heather is going to start speaking and introduce herself. So I will allow her to do that right now. Go for it, Heather. Heather, are you muted? So unmute yourself. I'm going to unmute you and see if that works.
Got it. Got it.
Oh, good. Okay. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you. Thanks, Jolie. Thanks for the intro and thanks for getting us started. Just want to also take the opportunity to welcome all of you to our Kaulunani Urban and Community Forestry Program webinar, where you can learn more about how to apply for our grants. Glad you're all here. My name is Heather McMillan. I'm the coordinator for this program, and I'm here in the Division of Forestry and Wildlife. At the bottom of the slide there, you see my contact information should you have any questions and want to follow up with me, but also very important is our website there, where you can find all the information that we're sharing today in more detail for you to review at your leisure. Next slide, please.
All right, so here's a slide just showing my contact information. I am Jolie Dollar, and I work for a nonprofit organization called Smart Trees Pacific. Heather and I work together on the grant program that we will be speaking about today. And so my email is there, and feel free at any time with any question. I am here to help you out. And so at this point, we want to try out a poll where we're going to ask all of you to answer a question about where you work. And so I'm going to launch it. And if you could please answer the question, then that'll give us a good idea about where you are working and how we can best help you out. Good. I can see that people are answering. Thank you. All right, one more second. If you haven't answered, please do so. All right. Thank you to everybody who answered. Looks like 60% of us are on Oahu. Oh, I can share. I'm going to share the results with you. So hopefully you can see that most of us are on Oahu, with some on Hawaii Island and Kauai, and a few of us on continental US. All right, thank you for sharing. So at this point, we will continue our slideshow. Go for it, Heather.
Sure. So we've introduced ourselves and the program. Next, we will tell you a little more about our Kaulunani program and then dive right into details on how to apply for the grants. and we'll conclude with some time to answer your questions at the end. So the Kaulunani Urban and Community Forestry Program has existed here since the early 90s. Every state has an urban and community forestry program, and ours is called Kaulunani. Kaulunani refers to the beautiful growth in Hawaii. The word ulu means grow, spread out. It also, in its noun form, refers to a grove, but it also means to be inspired by spirit. So I think it's a wonderful guiding light for us to think about our program as being inspired to create together a growing, green, healthier place to live together. The program is supported in large part by the USDA Forest Service, but it also has support from the state. The program is advised by a volunteer council made up of experts from a wide variety of sectors throughout the state. Our advisory council lives. They represent, they are arborists, they are landscape architects, they are environmental educators, they are horticulturalists, master gardeners, really represent a wide range, planners. And these folks are the ones who help to advise the Division of Forestry and Wildlife on the program. But more importantly for you to know is they are also the ones who review and vote on the grant applications that come in. And we, all of us in the program and the council especially, we really look to our community partners, our grantees, as the gold star of our program. You guys are the ones that make this program fantastic. And so it's really a pleasure to be able to support all the good work that's going on in our communities. And we look forward to learning more about your projects and working together in the future. So all of you know about our grants program. That's why you're here today. But I also want you to know that we have some other programs that you can learn about in more detail on our website. But briefly, these are educational and technical resources where you can learn more about our urban tree canopy, learn about how that's changed over time. Unfortunately, we know it's declining. You can also find resources there to understand how to deal with hazardous trees, things to keep in mind when planting and selecting trees. We also have a fantastic citizen foresters program. This idea actually came from our Kaulunani Advisory Council, and it was a seed of an idea that has grown, and Smart Trees Pacific, our nonprofit partner, has really given it wings, along with fantastic engaged community members for now around Oahu, but the program is also expanding to neighbor islands, and there's also some interest even from Guam now. So that's a program that you should read more about. We sponsor Arbor Day throughout the state and help to support tree giveaways and tree education programs. So mark your calendars for that first Saturday in November for Arbor Day. Kaulunani also supports Tree City and Tree Campus USA programs, and you can learn more about those on our website. And finally, we are partners in the Stewardship Mapping and Assessment Project, which some of you may have heard about. This is essentially an inventory of Malama Aina, Aloha Aina groups working. Right now, we're focusing on the districts of Kona and Ko'olaupoko here on Oahu. So if you are part of a group that does environmental stewardship of any kind and you're in our project area, please fill out your survey if you have received one. And if you have not yet received one and would like to be included in the online geospatial database and map that we're creating about stewardship organizations, go to that website there and you can see how to sign up to participate. stewmaphawaii.net. Next slide, please. So the goals of the Urban and Community Forestry Program are really to help communities and decision makers understand the benefits of trees, also to increase the tree canopy across the state, as well as increasing the benefits that we realize from those trees. And when we talk about benefits, we're thinking of all kinds of benefits, from carbon sequestration to oxygen production to habitat support to health and well-being benefits for our communities. As I mentioned, we support tree planting demonstration projects and Arbor Day activities. And another important goal is to enhance technical skills and knowledge related to arboriculture, horticulture, and planting. So you'll see that these program goals are also represented in what we look for in grant applications, of course. So these are important for you to have an understanding of. Next. So that was a lot of information to take in all at once. Here's a quote for you to enjoy from Warren Buffett and to reflect on that as we segue into the next part of our presentation.
Thank you so much, Heather. So for this part of the presentation, I will be speaking specifically about the grant program and what the steps are to apply, all the guidelines that you need to be familiar with, and all the other information pertaining to the program. And so I'll start off by saying that the first purpose of the grant program is to help Hawaii achieve its Forest Action Plan objectives. And I will state what those are in the next slide. And the second purpose is to support urban and community forestry efforts statewide. Okay, so our Forest Action Plan objectives, there's 8 of them listed here, and they range anywhere from using trees to mitigate the impacts of climate change, all the way to urban tree care and to how to properly care for urban trees, to how trees help people be healthier, and providing people with education and outreach. And so these, I feel like all of your good ideas about trees fall into one or more of these Forest Action Plan objectives. So for fiscal year 2020, which begins July 1st of this year and runs through June 30th of 2020, we have about $37,000 available to fund projects. And the first deadline that we have for applying for those funds is August 1st. And we also have, there's potential if your idea isn't a good fit for what we have to offer, we can also help you find other options of how to get funding for your ideas. All right, so who can apply? So any non-federal entity, whether it's an organization or an individual operating within Hawaii, can apply for these funds. Non-profit status is not required. And even organizations and individuals that are not based in Hawaii but want to do work or are already doing work in Hawaii can apply for these funds. And we want new ideas to help us achieve those forest action plans that I stated before. All right, so some important things about what isn't eligible for funding. We aren't able to provide funds for acquiring property, for tree removal, for projects that are completely inaccessible to the public. We have questions about places like schools that are only accessible during certain times, and that is okay. But we don't want to fund projects that are absolutely inaccessible to public use. We aren't able to fund large equipment such as computers, cameras, but we are able to fund supplies, which includes things like shovels, pots, and that sort of stuff. We aren't able to provide food, funding for food and drinks, and this is part of the U.S. Forest Service requirements. And we aren't able to provide funding for salaries and wages, but contractual services where you hire out the work to individuals, that can be funded. All right, so the opportunities that we have available, they fall into 3 main grant levels, and they're based on the amount of funding requested. So the first level, which is funding up to $2,499, that's under the grant level ELIMA. And then the second level is called MAMAKI, and that's for funding from $2,500 to $14,999. And it's important to note that if you are asking for funding in this category, you need to make sure that you filled out your Hawaii Compliance Express documents and that you're registered as a vendor with the state of Hawaii. So if you aren't familiar with that process, we can help you, but we just want to make you aware that that is a requirement of that grant level. And we also have a third level called ULU. This is for big ideas. And even though we don't have the funding specifically through this program to help fund this program, we still offer a pre-proposal application that gives us an idea of what your ideas are, and we can help you potentially find funding for those larger scale projects. All right, and there's also 4 different grant categories shown here. First one is urban and community forestry technology tools. And one example of that is the Aloha Arborist Association has developed best management practices for how to best care for trees near Manu'oku nesting sites. And so that's an example of that category. The second one is urban forestry professional training. And an example of that is an organization called Trees for Honolulu's Future, asked for funding to host a conference. The third is education and public outreach, such as Ohia Love Festival and Arbor Day events. And fourth, demonstration tree planting projects. And that example is Garden of Eden Wellness Pathway. And so when you apply for funding, you have to show that your idea falls within one of these 4 grant categories. If your idea includes planting a demonstration tree planting project, there are certain requirements involved in that, and we want to make you familiar with that. First of all, you need to have landowner permission, a maintenance plan, and include an arborist. And you also have to show us a site map and make sure that the site can be accessible. We need to be able to see what plant species you want to plant and make sure that those species have gone through the weed the weed risk assessment, which ensures that we aren't planting invasives. And we also need information about how you are going to use volunteers and network with various community groups. And we also need to see 3 separate quotes from nurseries for the cost of those plants, and also cost of maintenance and supplies. And a full list and explanation of all these requirements is on our website. So please visit there if you want more information about tree planting projects. Okay, so there, these are just some suggestions on how to make your ideas stand out, and having proposals where volunteers are being used, where you're networking and having partnerships is very important. Promoting diversity is important, and meeting specific community needs, building capacity, and projects that are visible. These are all ideas to help your project proposals stand out. Now, an important part of our program is that we require one-to-one non-federal match. And so for every dollar that you are asking for in your proposal, you have to demonstrate that you're willing to contribute one-to-one in either cash amount or in-kind services, such as volunteer hours or equipment. And so one example is if you're asking in your proposal for $5,000, you need to show that you're willing to contribute $5,000 either, and that could be made up of any percentage of in-kind and cash amount. And so this can be confusing, and if you want more information and help with understanding this, please email me and I can give you more information. It's important in your proposal to document how you will provide that one-to-one match, and some ideas about how to do that is, for example, if you have a business that wants to contribute cash for your match, then you have to show a letter of commitment from that business. And also listing how you will use volunteer hours is another way to show your match. Match from other federal grants is not eligible. So you can't use match from a different federal grant. And also for your project, the first year of tree maintenance can be used as match. Okay, so here's some specific steps on how to get your proposal ready. First, you need to make sure that if you want to apply for this first upcoming August 1st deadline, that you get everything prepared before August 1st. Now there are 4 different deadlines throughout the year, but if you want to have access to the most amount of funding, then it's important that you get your proposal in by August 1st. And step 2 is understanding the grant guidelines, which can be found on the website. Step 3 is figure out what application level you want to apply for and get that form from the website. And step 4, as part of the application process, you have to fill out a budget form. And so that's also available as a form for you to fill out. And then at any point during this process, if you want help, if you're confused about anything, I am here to help you. What to expect. So our first upcoming deadline is August 1st. And so that's the deadline for emailing your application to both me and Heather. Under certain circumstances, we do allow for mail submission, but we prefer email. On August 15th, the council will vote on what applications will get funded. And by the end of August, applicants will be notified. After that, in about 4 weeks, the grant paperwork will be mailed out, and that process of getting your reimbursements for your project will be started. And then by June 30th of 2020, projects must be fully expended. And so it's important to note that our grants are only for 1-year periods. And so by June 30th, everything has to be completed. All right, so how do reimbursements work? So for these grants, if you're applying for, say, $5,000, you aren't given that money up front. You have to make those purchases and then ask for reimbursement. And so how that happens is you submit an invoice showing your expenses, and you need to submit documentation of match. And then DOFA will reimburse you for those expenses. And then final reports are required, and sometimes quarterly reports if you want reimbursements done throughout the year of the proposal, of the project, I'm sorry, for that year. All right, so this slide just shows some example of wording in the narrative, which is part of the application. And this is just to show that I have examples of what's worked for projects in the past about how to phrase things and how to list things to make your proposal competitive. And so I can help you make sure that your narrative elements are successful. This shows the budget spreadsheet that you will be required to use. This form can be found on the website. And I can also help you make sure that everything is filled out as it should be. All right, so when your application goes to the council for review, these are just some things to keep in mind. They're going to be looking at what projects are most cost effective. They want to see maximized educational benefits. They want to make sure that there's been thought put into non-discrimination statements, such as instead of just stating that the facility is accessible to wheelchairs, you should put more thought into it, such as we will make sure that our educational information is made available to everybody, regardless of age, socioeconomic background, and so forth. So they want to see that. And then for tree planting projects, they want to make sure that all of those species have been screened for invasiveness. And there's also requirements that that species list includes 70% trees. And another way to make your application more competitive is to make sure that those commitment letters from partners and matching commitment letters are all included in your application. All right, with that, I'm gonna close with this quote about, even though the best time to plant was 20 years ago, right now is the second best time. And so we look forward to hearing more about your ideas and how we can help you make your application successful. And make sure you have my email address that's listed on this slide. And you can ask me questions. And you can also, remember what I said, you can post questions to chat box through this webinar too, and we can answer you that way. All right, with that, I'm gonna leave you with the thought that trees make communities more livable. And we ask you to, one more time, fill out a poll that's gonna help us know if you want some more information. Let's see. So I am going to send this out, and if you want to set up a meeting, please click yes, and we will make sure to get back to you. And with that, we will close. And if you
explain where they can click on the chat in the bottom.
Yes, so on the bottom of your screen, I just want to remind you that you can click on chat and ask us questions, and we will get back to you. Oh, okay, so we do have one question that I want to tell you all about, and it says, can the grant pay to transport trees from a nursery to the planting site?
Can, but if they can get that matched, that's better.
Yes, so you are able to ask for funding for those transportation expenses. But one other idea is using that as match. We've seen people do that in the past, and that makes your application more competitive if you're able to show that you're able to match expenses like that. And another question is, can grant funds be used to top off existing trees? No, we aren't able to provide funding for that sort of work.
Topping is bad.
Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna.
This is Heather. I just want to follow up to that question about topping trees. I would say that we have supported arborist consultations and arborists to help in maintaining trees, but generally topping trees is not a good practice. That is, that it does not have a healthy result for growing a good tree and its canopy. So we don't support that.
All right, so we also have a question from somebody asking if there's a list of previous awardees and project descriptions available online. And on the website, we do have examples of projects, but we don't have a very complete list of of all the applications and what's been awarded with descriptions. And this is something that we're working on getting compiled and making available to people. So this is something that we know can be very helpful, and we want to make it available in the future. So thank you for asking about that. All right, so if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them in that window, chat window. Otherwise, you are free to leave the webinar. And this webinar will be posted on the website. So if you want to go back and access it later or share it with anybody else who you think might be interested, please do so. All right, thank you so much. Okay, so yes, we will be on for longer if you want to ask questions.
Wants to be unmuted. Just say, keep asking. If anyone wants to be unmuted, you know, type there. We can unmute you. Okay, so you're looking at this.
So if anybody is still on and they want to be unmuted to ask anything, send that request into the chat box and we can unmute you in case you want to verbalize your question. All right.
That's it.
Okay, so I will be shutting down this webinar. Feel free to email me if you have questions, and we look forward to hearing more from you. Bye-bye. Okay, I'm not going to end the meeting.
That's fine. She just said mahalo. So.
Okay. Okay.